case you have not heard, I'm sure you have, but just in case you haven't, Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson is very unhappy with his team and potentially wants out via trade. So what are the chances a team like, let's say maybe the Chicago Bears, end up trading for Deshaun Watson? That is what I'm here to tell you what is going on, y'all. Faiz Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NFL. Here to talk about the Chicago Bears. And if you are a Bears fan and you're not subbed to the channel, I promise you, you won't regret it. You just won't. I'm telling you, I bring you the best content around NFL in general as well. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you do hit the bell icon. And make sure you are, of course, following me on all my social media platforms. Links is always down below and on the screen. So, got a lot to get to. Let's talk about this news. So, a couple things here. I have the actual odds that the odds makers have released in terms of which teams have the best chance of landing Deshaun Watson. But I got to preface it with a couple of things. Number one, it is still highly unlikely that the Texans trade him. Okay? I say that, but in the same breath, I also say that we just saw another Houston superstar in James Harden get traded. And man, something's going on in Houston because people don't want to stay there, but I digress. And here's the thing. If Deshaun Watson wants out, just like James Harden wanted out, he will get traded because it is just not good business to keep a guy on your team if he clearly does not want to be there, is unhappy. So even though I say it's unlikely because in the NFL, it's a little bit more difficult than in the NBA. We've seen mega superstar trades in the NBA. In the NFL, it's much more rare. But again, Deshaun Watson, if he wants to control his own fate, if he wants to listen to guys like Andre Johnson, who came out and said that the Texans organization, and I quote, ruins players' careers. If he wants to listen to guys like that, obviously Andre Johnson, a superstar receiver who has spent his entire career pretty much with the Texans, if he wants to listen to guys like that and understand that he might just be wasting his career in Houston and forces out, then there is a chance this happens. All right, there is a legitimate chance. And before, I didn't think so, but now I am starting to warm up to it. Okay, I'm starting to warm up to it. So that's number one. Number two, I made a couple of videos about this. Number one, about the fact that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are staying with the Bears. And the real reason why I believe they're staying with the Bears is because I believe the Bears are going to go all in again this year to try to acquire a quarterback and compete in 2021. And go watch that whole video. I promise you, you won't regret it. I explain it all there. And that is my big theory. So the thing is, it might lead to the Bears swinging for the fences at a home run like a Deshaun Watson. Okay? So that's the other thing here. And so now, number three, let's talk about these odds. All right, let's talk about these odds and what they are. All right, so this is per the odds makers. Here are the odds for the teams to land Deshaun Watson. So the Texans are the prohibitive favorite to keep Deshaun Watson, of course. Like I mentioned, at minus 125. But then you see here teams like the Dolphins are next, okay, at plus 300. Then we got the Pats, then the Jets, then the Bears are down here at plus 550, and then Colts and 49ers. So couple things when I see this. Number one, I also made another video talking about which teams actually make realistic trade options for Deshaun Watson. I took a look at every single team in the NFL and took a look at why they would or would not be a good option, basically taking into account salary cap, trade assets. If Deshaun Watson wants to be there, just keep in mind, he's got a no-trade clause. People forget that. Deshaun Watson's only getting traded to where he wants to go. So when I take a look at this, I can already cross off teams that I myself crossed off because I came up with like a list of 3 to 5 teams, 3 really, that I believe were legitimate contenders for Deshaun Watson. So, who can we cross off here? Well, we're not going to count the Texans, but the Dolphins here. Are they really going to trade Tua after one season? I'm not saying I blame them because Deshaun Watson's way better. And they have the most draft capital. They'd be able to give up, I believe, a top 5 draft pick. But really, you want to give up after Tua after one season? And does Deshaun Watson want to go to Miami? So I did not believe they would be giving up Tua so quickly. The Patriots. What do they really have? Deshaun Watson's not going to want to go to a team that's not ready to win right now. The Patriots are garbage in terms of talent. They don't have a great receiving core. They don't have a great running back room. They don't have anything besides a decent defense and a star cornerback in Stephon Gilmore. And I get it. They have Bill Belichick, but he can only do so much. So I don't see the Pats, all right? The Jets, same thing. They're actually rebuilding. They're going to draft the quarterback most likely, maybe Justin Fields this year. I don't see the Jets. Then we've got the Bears, and then we got the Colts. You really expect Deshaun Watson to get traded to a division rival? Yeah, the Colts are like, yeah, destroy us for the next 10 years, please, with that's with a quarterback like Deshaun Watson. Or I should say the Texans would say that to the Colts. And then finally, the 49ers. They were actually one of my teams. My 3 teams were the 49ers, the Bears, and the Broncos. The Broncos are actually not on here, but those were the 3 teams. So the 49ers totally makes sense, and we got the Bears here. So I think the odds makers are starting to see what I see, which is the Bears are a legitimate threat to acquire Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying it's going to happen for sure. Obviously, it's a very, very difficult trade to make because of how much you have to give up. But what I am saying is, here are the odds, and I gave you the teams that I don't believe make any sense, and I don't think Deshaun Watson wants to go there. I think Deshaun Watson will go to a winner in the Bears, and a team like the 49ers, or even a team like the Broncos, right? These are 3 teams, even though, again, we know the Bears haven't had much success, but these are 3 teams that have won Super Bowls. These are 3 teams that have had, a decent reputation for at least being competitive. And so with Deshaun Watson, it's going to be about who's going to give Houston the most draft capital, the most assets, the best young players. So even if the Bears aren't able to give a high draft pick, they can give young stars in, say, like a Roquan Smith or a Jalen Johnson or whoever. I'm not going to get into the trade details here. All I'm trying to let you guys know is don't underestimate the chances for the Bears. The odds makers aren't, and you shouldn't either. If Deshaun Watson wants it badly, he can get out of Houston, and I do believe they will trade him. Max Kellerman on ESPN First Take even talked about how the Bears would be the perfect scenario for Deshaun Watson. And have you thought about the fact that Deshaun always talks about the Bears and how he's pissed off they passed up on him? Well, maybe that's because he wanted to be in Chicago. Maybe that's because he wanted to be with the Bears enough. Obviously, that's Ryan Pace's fault for not picking him, but that's another point. And so Ryan Pace, actually speaking of that, he can right his one wrong, not one wrong, but one big wrong, the thing he's known for more than anything. Like, nobody cares that Ryan Pace drafted Roquan Smith, who turned into a stud. He drafted Darnell Mooney, who's a stud, Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet. No one cares because he passed up on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes to draft Mitchell Trubisky. So if he can right that wrong, maybe Bears fans turn the page on Pace. Who knows? But that's essentially it, folks. So I'm going to come out with a ton of videos on this. Let's see what happens here. I do think before I was like, there's no way they trade him. But now, after what happened with James Harden, like, the chemistry-wise, why would you want to keep a guy who doesn't want to be there? A bunch of Texans ex-players, DeAndre Hopkins, are all coming out and saying, get out of Houston, Deshaun. Get out of Houston. Chicago could be a destination. Let's see what happens. So there you have it, folks. Let me know if you guys enjoyed that. If you did, leave a comment down below if you agree with me or disagree. As always, thanks for watching.